Okay, who would like to begin?
Okay.
Ladies first.
I can start. If my voice corroborates, I can start. 4 people could sit. Well, that's a puzzled sentence. Baba never sat on the swing, but Indu sat on it after her bath and sang beautifully. Other rented furniture was procured. Baba had a room in front, and the 4 younger women, Mera, Mani, Khorshid, and Nacha, shared a room. The large compound of the house was surrounded by bamboo matting made higher on Baba's orders so that people could not see inside. There was also a tennis court in the garden, and Baba asked the women whether they would like to play. They had seen wooden rackets and balls in the storeroom, but they had not taken them out. We were all excited, Mera related, and brought them outside. I need more words.
Yes.
And brought them out. The rackets were heavy. I didn't know how to hold it, but Baba said to try. Baba just watched and, seeing that we couldn't manage well, called it off after a little while, saying, "That's enough." He didn't suggest it again, so we didn't play anymore. One evening, Baba took them to Krishnaraja Zagar, a reservoir 12 miles from the city. Below the dam is the terraced Brindavan garden. A reservoir 12 miles from the city. Below the dam is the terraced Brindavan gardens. Fountains illuminated by colored lights turn the landscape into a fairyland. Mera was fascinated by the colors and water and wanted to linger for a longer look. But Baba said to come on, quick now. The first time the women ever saw giraffes was at the Mysore Zoo, one of the best in India. At first, Mera thought they were not real. Then they moved. Another day, Baba took them to Chamundi, a hill that overlooks Mysore, where he had been in seclusion in April 1934. A 16-foot rock statue of Nandi, the Hindu sacred bull, stands on the hill. They drove up the hill with Baba and saw a goddess temple on top. Baba waited in the car, but told them to go and have a look. Crowds were there, so Mera did not go inside. She saw the statue of the goddess from afar and the huge Nandi bull nearby, carved out of solid rock. At night, lights on top of the hill shone like a diamond necklace. Initially, the women found Mysore situated 2,500 feet from sea level and full of gardens, broad avenues, palaces, and grand old dwellings to be congenial and charming. Mera recalled, the air was lovely. There were many flowers and the town was nice. But their stay in Mysore was not destined to be so pleasant throughout. And before they left, the bungalow where they stayed would be referred to as Bala headache problem, bungalow, Bala bungalow. And Baba would call Mysore an eyesore.
There are their pictures.
Najamani, Mehera, Baba servants, Walu.
Mhm.
Meherabad Hill.
36.
Yeah,
You were asking me for the year.
yeah.
Mara and Mani.
But he doesn't necessarily put pictures in the right place in the book, I found.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. Is that Walu? Who's the one clear to the left there? That must be Walu, huh?
This one?
On the left, yeah. Now that's Korsha to the right, and then Naja. But this, I don't recognize her, so maybe it's Walu. Or no,
Naja.
no, Naja is,
Indu Subnis. She was a young
yeah,
girl.
that's who it is.
Mhm.
Mysore and Maya. In 1936, Mayor Baba's 42nd birthday, by his request, was not celebrated by the Mandali in Mysore. Later, they learned that that day, Upasni Maharaj had arrived unannounced at Kushru quarters in Ahmednagar and himself performed Baba's birthday arti in front of the shrine with Baba's photo that Gulnai worshipped in her prayer room. Baba had said that what a master does, he does for all. So there had been no need for anyone else to celebrate his birthday. The next day, Baba had to travel all the way to Nasik to deal with Frani and Rustam's family situation. Frani was reported to be, quotes, acting up, end quotes, over not being taken to Mysore with the other women. She was, in fact, deeply depressed, but Baba consoled her. He also helped to settle some things between her and Rustam. But as Baba had said previously in front of the ashram boys, quotes, ordinary marriage means jagala, fighting, and 1,001 worries arising therefrom. And there was more to come. By the time Baba reached Mysore a week later, it was late, 11 o'clock at night. Chanji noted that rather than disturb the insiders, Baba rested for the night at the Mandali's bungalow, which was nearby. This is after a long time that Baba sleeps with the Mandali. Baba was planning to call the Westerners to India for a long stay, and he continued to keep his links with them through regular correspondence. But the problem was where to establish an ashram that could accommodate them. Baba had been considering Mysore, but he did not like the prevailing Hindu orthodoxy there, which, he explained, made it difficult for him to do his work. One day, Baba suggested to Mani, why don't you go to the hospital here? It's a nice hospital run by women. Take blue ultraviolet light treatment. For what reason, Mani did not know. We never thought to ask Baba why. Or do I need it? She said. So I began having the ultraviolet treatment on my chest for 10 minutes a day. Baba even arranged a car, a noisy tin jalopy,
Ah,
to take her to the missionary-run hospital. In order to ensure that the driver would not see Mani, a curtain was hung between the front and back seats. At the hospital, there were two women doctors, a physician, and an American surgeon named Dr. Gillespie. The only men were a eunuch cook and an old gardener who was so old, Mani joked. I sometimes wondered if he saw what he was doing. There was a European Swedish matron and all these lovely little South Indian nurses, Mani continued. I automatically became friendly with them. I need more words. And greeted them when we met. With the doctors and the matron, I had much less contact and simply smiled when I saw them. One day, Baba asked me, "Are you friendly with the nurses?" At first, I thought maybe Baba didn't like that. I said, "Well, Baba, just to greet them, yes, I do." He said, "Good. And what about the doctor and the matron?" I said, "I don't see them much." Baba said, "Meet them more often. Make a point to talk with them." So I did. Baba was preparing the ground for something, but for what, no one knew. Further preparation work was evident later when Baba informed Mani that he was going to Uti, O-O-T-Y, Uti, and that she must not go to the hospital in his absence. Baba told her, "The car will not come for you for 4 days, but tell the matron and the two doctors that you are going to Uti and ask what you can bring them. Insist that they request something, and I will bring it." The women at the hospital at first refused, but with great reluctance. One said a pair of gloves, and the other some food items. I need more words. But the situation became awkward when Mani had to pretend that she had been to all the tourist spots in this scenic hill resort in the Nilgiris mountains. They asked if she had seen this botanical garden or that club, and she watched their faces and said, "Oh, yes." Mani's strategy: to reply with 2 yeses and then 1 no. Mani did not really feel like changing and going to the hospital every day, but she obeyed Baba's orders. In doing so, she became a familiar figure there, and because of Baba's instructions and the gifts from Uti, she endeared herself to the nurses and staff. Excuse me. It was all a prelude for what was to follow. At 3 a.m. on the morning of 23rd March, Mani woke with a shooting pain in her ear. Her pillowcase was covered with blood. She sat in a chair holding a towel to her ear until the others woke at 5. They asked what was wrong, and she showed them the blood. By this time, I can't read, it's kind of cut off. Let's see. By this time, her jaw had locked.
oh no.
Wow. Mehera was horrified. And Mehera said, I couldn't stand the sight of blood and discharge. I was shocked. I told Sunamasi to go and tell Baba. We couldn't go out as the men were with Baba. Baba came quickly and arranged for Mani to go to the hospital. He was angry that she hadn't woken anyone at once. Because of Mani's close relationship with the staff, when this emergency occurred, the nurses ran to serve and help her. Everyone knew her and took extra special care. Because of Mani's preparation, because of Baba's preparation, Mani was treated like a VIP. They were so kind and loving to me, says Mani, that when I had to be rushed to the hospital as an emergency, the whole hospital was aware that it was Mani. When I arrived at the hospital, everything was closed. But when the staff found out who it was, they ran and got the best of everything.
I have to take a little break here
Okay.
because I need to use the bathroom.
Okay.
And I'll be back.
Okay. What say you, Eugene?
What?
What say you? What does the H stand for? Eugene H. Eugene.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, H stands for honey.
Really? That's not really your name. Honey Bunny. Oh, I see, Honey Bunny. I get it.
I wonder if individual souls have names.
Like, what do you mean?
You know, the soul goes from body to body. Over 8 million times, right? And then so does it have an identifying name?
You have to give up your name every time. I mean, even me, I wanted to keep my license plate here in South Carolina. They wouldn't let me do it. Because Adi Arani, I had this private talk with him, and he said I was too hard on myself. I thought it was very sweet of him to say. So I think of that somehow. My license says, it said Adi K 555. Yeah. He was quite something. Adi K was. He'd give a talk about God Speaks, which I didn't really appreciate. But when you went to India at first, there was no pilgrim center. So you had to find a place in town on the weekend. And then you could go back in if there was room for you. Yeah, so I kept doing that. So I go to Adi's talk at the Nagar Center, and I couldn't stand. There was some guy, and he was asking the question after question. But when Adi, he was in love with these ghazals, these, passionate songs to God, and he'd give a line in maybe Urdu, probably Urdu, and with such feeling, but one day this little boy that was one of the servant in the compound, her son, Baba Das, and he was not even 2. He was little, but he was wearing a ski sweater, this warm sweater, how he did in Nagar, I don't know, with nothing, like he was naked from the waist down. And he had a ski cap on. And when Adi saw him, he went from this fiery look to this, his face squinched up, like, because he had a real softness for this, this sweet little boy. And when I just about was going to leave India, he says, Baba Das, this little boy, was acting crazy. He thought I was influencing him. I don't know what happened to him, but good fortune. Yeah, have an uncle like Adi. Mani was examined and diagnosed as having an infected mastoid, the same condition that had killed Mehra's father, Jahangir. An operation was needed at once. Baba did not want Dr. Gillespie to perform it, as a specialist was summoned. So a specialist was summoned, a Dr. Robinson. He was an elderly Englishman serving as the personal physician to the Maharaja of Mysore. Mani recalled, Dr. Robinson had silver hair and hands like a pianist.
Wow.
The operation was performed on 26 March, and during the entire time that she was under the anesthesia, Mani had the experience of being out of her body and watching the operation from the ventilator on the top of the room. I saw white masked people doing something on a table. Mani had had ear trouble since childhood. Shireen Mai remembered her clutching her ear and crying even as a baby. Then it seemed to be all right. Mani had not had any pain or trouble for years, but of course, Baba knew. And the sidebar says, Baba, Jal, Vishnu, Chanji, Sinamasi, and Naja waited outside the operating theater during the hour-long procedure. Mani had been worried. After the operation, Dr. Robinson brought a clock and held it to Mani's ear. He asked, can you hear it ticking? Mani said she could, and the doctor was pleased that her hearing was intact. Mani had been worried about this herself and was also relieved that she could hear the clock, something that had once so annoyed her at Upper Meherabad. The operation left a large wound that had to be dressed daily. When it healed, Mani had a permanent dip at the back of her ear. What's that? I don't know what that is. Chanji was told to spare no expense in Mani's treatment. Money was no object. Dr. Gillespie was informed. The staff thought that Mani was wealthy, as she had been arriving at the hospital in a car. Yet, when some of the women Mandali visited her and brought necessities, such as food and additional bedding, as is customary in India, the nurses noticed the chipped enamel plates from which they ate. Mani noted our cups were no better. One had no handle, another was broken, and our sheets had 100 patches in them. Just look at the crockery they use. The staff seemed to be saying, it was very funny. We use broken cups, but Baba sent Chanji to say, spare no expense. In fact, Baba sent Chanji back and forth with a constant stream of questions for the doctors, which became embarrassing for him until finally those people were running away whenever they saw Chanji. Mani observed the hospital had huge grounds and we could see the doctor's cottage from the window. They came out of their cottage in the morning, and when they saw Chanji, they suddenly remembered something and went back. When the coast was clear, when they couldn't see Chanji anywhere, they ventured further. But Chanji was waiting for them behind a wall. But Mr. Dada Chanji, we've already told you, they said in exasperation. Poor Chanji could not explain the reason for his repeated inquiries. Papa came to the hospital twice a day, every day, although Mani's jaws were still locked. Wow. Baba spoon-fed her soup or orange juice. After a few days, he fed her peeled pieces of apple. It hurt to chew it. But Baba told Chanji and Jal to tell Mani a joke or a funny story to take her mind off the pain. Mani laughed at Jal's amusing nonsense. She laughed at Chanji too, but not for his stories. She never understood the point. It was the way he told them that was so funny. Once Baba asked, "Did you understand it?" Mani said no. And Baba said, "Then why did you laugh?" "All right, tell it again." Chanji repeated it. Mani still did not get the point, but she found Chanji's idiosyncratic manner amusing nonetheless. It was fortunate that Indu was with them in Mysore, as she proved helpful during Mani's hospital stay. Now they realized why Baba had gone out of his way to persuade this young woman to come. Mani explained, Baba, knowing what was to come, brought her. Indu was very, very useful at the time because in Mysore, we were only a few women. Sunamasi had watch duty on their veranda. Walu did the washing, including Baba's. Naja, who had been doing the cooking, stayed with Mani in the hospital, leaving Mehera and Khurshid alone to cook Baba's meals and prepare his chutney. Mani's food, a liquid diet, was separate and had to be ready for Baba to take to the hospital at 10:45 a.m. Baba saw that we were overworked, said Mehera. When Khurshid got a fever and Walu fell sick, he sent for Kaku, Vishnu's mother from Meherabad, to come and help. She was a very fine person. Baba never once took Mehera to the hospital, probably because it would have upset her and caused her to worry more. Sometimes Sunamasi stayed with Mani while Naja prepared Mani's food and packed it. When Kaku arrived, she cooked the woman's food, rice and dal or curry, and every other day, Kaku stayed with Mani. When Mani was feeling better, she left her bed and sat in a chair. Kaku sat on Mani's bed and then lay down. After a minute, she was snoring. When the nurse came, she could not believe it. The patient was sitting in a chair while the one who had come to attend her was fast asleep. Though no one at the hospital was told about Baba, whenever he visited, the nurses, on one pretext or another, peeked in to see him. They pretended, for instance, that it was time for Mani's medicine or to change her drinking water. Have I left my thermometer here? They ask, or is Nurse Rose here? Nadja whispered under her breath in Gujarati, which the staff did not understand. She knows Nurse Rose isn't here. She just wants an excuse to look at Baba. Something else wonderful happened. Without knowing who Baba was, each day Nurse Rose brought him all the newborns. Every baby born in the hospital was presented to Baba, who caressed it or held its finger and gave it back to her. One day, there were 12 newborns. As each was brought in succession to Baba, the women wondered when this parade of infants would end. Yet Baba never once showed any impatience or boredom. He gave each a full measure of his love. Okay, I think I'm through.
Okay, who would like to jump in? Eugene?
Go ahead, Tina, and pass it to me when you're tired.
Okay. Sensing that Baba was someone of importance, the staff asked Mani who he was. My brother, she replied, but why doesn't he talk? He's taken a vow of silence for many years. When they asked Nadja the same question, she replied, he's very shy. Since Mani was to have a high protein diet, Baba instructed Jal to buy chicken for her. But Jal brought a live chicken to the hospital and took it to Mani's room. When Jal stepped outside, the chicken wriggled free and flew around the garden, squawking around the garden. Jal and the gardener chased it and with great difficulty apprehended it, but not before much noise and everyone shouting in an uproar. Baba was visiting Mani at the time, and later he told Mehera about it. I learned my lesson, Baba said, shaking his head. I'll never send Jal on such an errand again. When Mani was discharged through Dr. Nilu, one of the Mandali, Baba presented Dr. Gillespie with an ivory teapot in appreciation for the fine care she had given Mani. Mehera Riley noted, the presents we gave the doctor were very grand, all because Mani's life was saved, while all our cups and saucers were broken. A teapoy is a small three-legged table used for serving tea. Meanwhile, Baba was having stomach trouble. Moreover, at the women's bungalow, because of all the illnesses, local miscreants. Is that how you said that word, miscreants?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Were being a nuisance by pelting stones at the house and poking holes in the tata fencing to try to see inside. The men arranged to have the fencing patched and were extra vigilant to prevent the same thing happening again. Baba said, it's all Mysorean Maya, working with all its might, creating complications on all sides. Oh, did I read that a teapoy is a small three-legged table served in, used for serving tea.
Teapoy.
Teapoy. I don't know where I was. It's all okay. And their neighbor, a religious Hindu, but their neighbor was a religious Hindu, but his servants abetted the delinquents in their vandalism. Baba did not want to antagonize their neighbor by calling his attention to this, since he said he needed the neighbor's goodwill for his work. The neighbor held an orthodox but misguided preconception about the way a master is supposed to behave. Meher Baba should use his powers to rectify the situation himself, he felt, or else he was not a master. Likewise, he expected Baba to miraculously heal Mani rather than resort to the worldly remedies he had used. But as Baba explained to the Mandali, the avatar has to work in the world and through all kinds of people, and thus uses material resources where possible. The master tolerates people's prejudices and weaknesses until they can be persuaded to give them up.
Mhm.
Baba had been considering establishing a mast ashram in either Satara or Y, but now he preferred Rahuri, conveniently situated between Meherabad and Nasik, and he decided that the Westerners would be living. In a meeting with the men, Baba said, now the only way out of all the Bala's headaches is to change the old policy to stay with the male mandali and Adurnas should be kept away, but where? It was decided that the women should live at Meherabad, and by staying nearby at Rahuri, Baba could be aloof and at the same time in touch with all. Having been at Mysore for 4 months, Baba and the women left by train for Pune on 30th of May. From there, they journeyed to Meherabad by bus. Shireen Mai was living in Bombay, still living in Bombay, and Baba sent Mani there so that a proper dressing could be done to her ear. Jal stayed with her, and each morning he accompanied her in the tram to the doctor who changed her bandages. Baba came to Bombay several times in June. So it is 1936, Rosalind.
Yeah, thank you.
Once before he departed for Nasik, he took Mani for a drive on the beach. They stopped the car near the ocean and watched an old Parsi woman praying, as is customary among Zoroastrians. It was a holiday, and she had the traditional coconut by her side. When she finished praying, she threw the coconut in the water. The tide rolled it back. She threw it a third time, and again the tide brought it to her feet. The same thing happened a third time. And Baba had a hearty chuckle over the scene, but traditional religious practices and age-old prejudices were causing difficulties for Shireen Mai. Mimo, as Mani and Baba called her, lived in Bombay for almost a year. The first 6 months in an apartment at Banu Mansion, where she had problems with the other tenants. According to Mani, the trouble stemmed from the fact that Baba came to see his mother not only with his Zoroastrian disciples, but his Hindu and Muslim as well. The tenants did not like this, and the building was meant exclusively for Parsis and Iranis. They all three signed a petition to have Shireen Mai evicted. The landlord was understanding and said that he would arrange for another apartment for her. But Mimo said, I haven't done anything wrong. He had no answer for this. So she stayed. Mani observed that Mimo was like Baba, scrupulous about the rules. If the rent were due on the 1st, she paid it beforehand on the 28th. Opposite them lived an elderly, crotchety Parsi woman whose brother was blind. He earned a living by growing plants in clay pots. This woman would always open her door to see who had come to see Shireen Mai.
Unknown caller.
Hold on. Shireen Mai. She stood in the doorway, angrily repeating the prayers from the Avestas. It hurt Mother, Mani observed, but Bayram solved the problem. When the old lady opened her door, he put on a Persian record on the gramophone and cranked up the volume. This went on for a few days until it broke her of the habit. In the end, all of the tenants except the 3 who supported Shireen Mai in one way or another moved out of the building. Mother hated Bombay and really loved Pune. Pune to behest nu kunu. Shireen Mai used to say, Pune is a corner of heaven. What prompted her to move to Bombay, Mani surmised, was that Bayram was considering setting up a photographic studio there. I think I missed this sidebar. These few weeks in 1936 were one of the rare occasions after joining Baba when Mani was ever separated from Mehera. The only other times during Baba's lifetime were once or twice when Mani went to Pune for dental or legal purposes. Eugene, you want to pick up?
So considering setting up a photographic studio there. Mani's sister-in-law, Big Khorshid, was also living in Bombay at Widow's Chawl and met Shireen Mai occasionally. Mani too saw Big Khorshid once at this time and never again. Baba, however, visited Big Khorshid several times. The sidebar says Big Khorshid later remarried a wealthy widower. They adopted from birth her sister's granddaughter. So back to the text. After staying in Bombay, the granddaughter, and moved to Karachi. Years later, Big Khorshid moved back to Bombay. After staying in Bombay for 2 weeks, Jal escorted Mani back to Meherabad, where Padri came to do her bandage dressing on the hill and give her homeopathic medicine. But Padri and Mani were not allowed to speak to each other. Sunamasi was always present, and if Padri had to ask Mani something, it was done through Sunamasi. So years later, Big Khorshid moves back to Bombay, where she died. Moved back to Bombay, where she died. When Mani had first begun taking homeopathic medicine from Padri, she had not been allowed even to see him. Her condition was conveyed through Baba. Once someone brought a bouquet of flowers and Mani took a whiff. Baba said, now Padri's dose may be affected. Since homeopathic medicine uses microscopic doses, and some practitioners believe it is rendered less effective by strong odors. Baba went to Padri and asked whether it was all right that Mani had smelled the flowers. Padri said it was and joked, if you're so worried about it, tell her not to use the crapper either. Until this time, the women had always worn saris during the day. When they returned from Mysore, Mehera and the other younger women switched to long skirts and blouses, which they found to be more practical, since they did not get in their way while working. Besides, here on the hill, they were quite alone. Even so, Baba remained strict about seeing that their arms were fully covered by long-sleeved blouses. It was a long, long time until Baba permitted the sleeves to come a bit higher with just the elbow covered, said Mani. Even our ankles had to be, could you scroll please, Tina?
I'm trying.
No. Even our ankles had to be fully covered. Whoops. Yeah. And the sidebar says, later at times, especially when traveling, the women wore slacks also. The women had some ordinary off-white material from which they made the skirts. These were worn with any of their old blouses. At night, they had been sleeping in their saris. Now they slept in a skirt and blouse. During June and July of 1936, Baba commuted between Meherabad, Rahuri, Bombay, and Nasik, seeing his lovers in those places and establishing the ashram in Rahuri for the God-intoxicated musts and the mad. For most of the next 3 months, Baba lived in Rahuri in a small one-room hut, but Mehera and the other women were never taken there. From September, Baba also visited Nasik every Wednesday to ensure that things there were going smoothly in preparation for the Westerners' arrival. On Thursdays, Baba visited the women in Meherabad, where the zoo work continued. What's the zoo work?
I don't know.
They had all those animals.
Oh, right. Yeah, their own.
Monkeys, peacock, deer.
Yeah, the tailless monkey.
The
who
tail
stank.
shampoo, yeah. You had to wear a diaper.
I guess they just poop when they
They just
come, yeah, like cows. Chapter 32, Three-Ring Circus. One day, Rustam returned from a trip to Bombay with a Nepalese myna and presented it to Baba. The handsome, elegant-looking bird, larger than an ordinary myna, had blue-black feathers and yellow flaps over its ears, resembling lacework. Its feet and thick, broad beak were orange. Rustam had purchased the bird at an elderly Madrasi herbalist's shop and had heard it repeat a few things in Madrasi or Telugu. Baba brought it to the women's quarters on the hill and told them that the bird's name was Mina and that it could talk. The first day, however, the bird was shy. The women waited, but it did not say anything. Never mind, Baba said. It has been raised by South Indians who don't speak Hindi or English. If you teach it English, it will learn as it speaks beautifully in other languages. I should read that sidebar. It looks interesting. Could you scroll up just a little bit? Yeah. Maina is the Hindi word for starling, derived from Sanskrit madana, meaning joyful or delightful. Since madana derives from a root meaning bubbles, the word Mina actually means bubbling with joy. Could you scroll upwards just a little bit?
Is that enough?
Okay, yeah, that's enough. So if you teach it English, it will learn as it speaks beautifully in other languages. The next morning, when the women were at breakfast with Baba in the kitchen, Baba wanted something from their room. He told Khorshid to bring it. When she entered the room, she went to the myna's cage to see what it was doing. Myna, the bird said very loudly. Khorshid quickly grabbed what Baba had sent for, rushed excitedly back to the kitchen, and announced, Baba, the myna is talking. What did she say? Baba asked, eager to know. She told him. Could you scroll up just a bit? I think there was a sentence that disappeared. Oh, sorry, that was okay. I'm sorry. Baba the myna is talking. What did it say? Baba asked, eager to know. Could you scroll up a little bit? Just a couple seconds. Go up just a little bit, please, Tina.
Okay. Is that enough?
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, you yeah. Scroll a little bit more. Okay. If you teach it English, it will learn as it speaks beautifully in other languages. The next morning, when the women were at breakfast with Baba in the kitchen, Baba wanted something from their room. He told Khorshid to bring it. When she entered the room, she went to the myna's cage to see what it was doing. Myna, the bird said very loudly. Khorshid quickly grabbed what Baba had sent for, rushed excitedly back to the kitchen and announced, Baba, the myna is talking. What did she say? What did it say? Baba asked, eager to know. She told him, and Baba said, see, I told you it would talk. You can teach it anything, and it will repeat it. Mehera was determined to teach the bird to speak in English. The correct method for doing so is to cover the bird's cage at night, and in the morning, before fully raising the cover, to lift it slightly put one's face near the cage and clearly say what one wants the bird to learn. So early each morning, Mara leaned near the cage and repeated, Baba, Baba, darling. Mani, Khorshed, and Naja repeated this during the day whenever they passed the bird's cage. Walu, who did not know English, said, Baba Darl, Baba Darl. The first few days, the bird did not respond. Then, while the girls were playing badminton, suddenly they heard, Baba, Baba, darling. Since no one else was permitted on the hill, their first reaction was fear. Our rackets stopped in midair, Mani remembered. Who could it be? My God, we were so startled and afraid. Suddenly, the next moment, we were all smiles. We threw down our rackets and all of us ran inside. We knew it was Mina. He had at last said, Baba, darling. Said Mehera, I was so happy, thinking that when Baba came, he would say it. No, that when Baba came, he would say it. When the kitchen was too warm or it was hot outside, Baba had his meals in the women's room on his gadi. That day, Mehera told him, the Mina can speak. He said your name beautifully. Mehera tried to get the bird to repeat the phrase, but now the Mina would not utter a sound. They waited for some time and then Baba said, never mind, let him be. Let's go to the kitchen now. You use your down arrow, Tina. All left, but as Mehera stood with Baba outside the door, they heard the bird say very loudly, Baba, Baba, darling. Baba turned around, surprised and happy. See how clearly it says it, he remarked. The bird repeated the words 2 or 3 times. After that, Mina was not only saying Baba darling, it was imitating each one's voice and intonations as well. If Mehera went inside the room, Mina hopped up and down and imitated how Mehera said those words. If Naja went, Mina imitated her, and so on, each in their own distinctive voice. Walu could not say it properly, but the bird imitated that also. For goodness sake, Mehera said when she heard it, don't teach him that. Mehera recalled the bird not only repeated what was said to him, but mimicked the person's voice also. If you laughed, Mina laughed in exactly the same way. He could imitate an old person coughing or a baby crying. He was a very sweet bird. When Mani played the sitar, the bird danced back and forth, hopping from one leg to another, tossing its head so the yellow ear flaps were like women, like a woman, tossing her hair to the music, Mani observed. The old herbalist in Bombay evidently had a horrible wheezing cough. And and the bird had picked up this hacking sound. Shireen Mai came to Meherabad for a visit and did not know about the bird. She heard the cough and went to Baba. Merog, she said, agitated, don't you take care of your girls? What do you mean? He asked. There's someone coughing so badly. I've never heard such a terrible cough in my life. Why don't you do something about it? Who is it? Baba looked absolutely innocent, as if he hadn't a clue what she was talking about. Then he took her to the women's room, and Shireen Mai chortled with delight when she found it was a bird. When Mara heard about that the Westerners would be coming to India again, she thought of Mina. By that time, we will have taught it so much more. Won't the Westerners be surprised when the bird says, Baba, darling, so clearly and beautifully? But it was not to be. Mina was kept in their room in a large cage in which they spread paper on the bottom. When the bird started sleeping under the paper at night, they realized he wanted a blanket or something. Down arrow, please. Something to curl up in. They made a robe and put it inside. Mina liked it and hid himself in it every night. The east room had a small clear-story windows near the ceiling. Do you pronounce that clear story or clerestory?
I don't
Anybody
know.
know?
I've never heard
Yeah.
that word before.
Yeah. I think they're like you know, windows up near the ceiling. A contraption was rigged so that the bird's cage could be raised there by ropes. Each day they pulled up the cage so that Mina could at least look out at the treetops and get some fresh air. One morning, when they were in the kitchen, there was a sudden storm. The women hurriedly shut the doors and windows of the kitchen and forgot about the bird. We couldn't think of anything except trying to get the doors and down arrow, please.
I'm trying. Sometimes the cursor doesn't cooperate.
Uh, except trying to get the doors and windows shut, said Mani. Then we realized that the bird was up there in the east room. Minas are delicate creatures. The rain came splashing in through the windows, and the bird caught a cold and got pneumonia. Its lungs were affected. It had a sore throat, and its voice cracked and was scratchy. It could not sit on its perch anymore, nor could it hide in its robe. The women put a warm flannel on the bottom of the cage and gave the bird all kinds of medication. Mina just sat there. When it could not even stand, they knew it was the end. Baba had gone down below, Mara continued. We each wanted to stand by the bird. We had begun to love him very much. We quickly finished our work and came and stood by him. Walu was washing Baba's clothes, but she washed her hands of soap and wiped them on her sari when she heard that Mina was very ill. She came in to see the bird. Mina opened his eyes, looked at Walu and said, Ba, ba,
Ah,
just as it was about to say, darling, it died. Wow.
wow.
Yeah.
That bird came to Baba.
Yeah. When Baba came, he held mine and wrapped his own kerchief around it like a burial shroud. Baba, with so much love, took Mina and buried him in front of our kitchen. Baba himself planted a neem tree there. That was the first time we heard Baba say, You people have not an iota of an idea what good fortune this bird has. It will take birth as a human being in its next form. Later, a female Mina was brought to Mehrabad. The women tried to teach it to talk, but since the bird never learned to speak, it was given away. Mera was informed later, incorrectly it turns out, that only the males of the species talk. The Minas were not the only ones who received language lessons from the women. A servant named Sita, who was more like one of the family, was employed to make chapatis. One day, the women dressed her in a skirt and blouse like a Westerner and taught her to say, "Baba, darling, I love you." When Baba came for lunch, they called Sita into the kitchen. Baba was greatly amused when this quote unquote Western lady spoke to him in English. From Rahuri, Baba came to Meherabad again on 18 October 1936 to say goodbye to the women and left for Bombay the next day, the same day. Accompanied only by Chanji and Kakabaria, he flew from Karachi to Baghdad, his 9th foreign journey and his first international air flight.
Mm.
So that's in 36, huh? Wow.
Mm.
And traveled on to Paris, London, and Switzerland before returning to India 5 weeks later. Wow, they had international air travel in 36. When Baba arrived in Bombay, he went immediately to the hospital to visit Perrin, Behram's wife, who had given birth to their second child, a baby girl, 6 days before. Baba named the baby Sunu because of its golden hair, but Shireen Mai preferred Golandun after her mother. Baba compromised and changed the name to Gulnar. But Shireen Mai did not like that either. It was too close to the name of her rival, Gulmai.
Oh. I think we could
Oh.
stop there.
Okay, we'll just read that sidebar. Sona means gold in both Urdu and Hindi.
Okay.
So Baba wanted to name the baby a similar sound.
This is
Sona.
328.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to make a note of it.
Good idea. And a note of the date so you'll know.
$328, right?
I can't see the page.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see you both next week. Oh,
Have a great time.
I'm going to stop recording.
All right.